Did you know that 90% of your daily decisions aren't actually conscious choices? They're automatic responses programmed by your brain's oldest systems, the same ones designed to keep our ancient ancestors alive when predators lurked behind every tree. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 6 stages of consciousness evolution that neuroscientists and spiritual traditions have independently verified. The most fascinating part, only one of these stages leads to genuine freedom, yet most people never reach it because they don't even know it exists. What if I told you that right now, you're living in a psychological cage with invisible bars? A cage so familiar that you've mistaken it for the full experience of being human. This cage has a name: survival consciousness. It's the most basic level of awareness, originating in the oldest parts of your brain, the brain stem and limbic system. These ancient neural structures were built with one primary purpose: to keep you alive in a world filled with danger, not to provide happiness or fulfillment. Think about how your ancestors lived thousands of years ago. Every rustling bush could hide a predator. Every unfamiliar face might belong to an enemy. Your brain developed instant threat detection as a survival mechanism. Today, you're still running this ancient software in a completely transformed world, like using a Stone Age operating system on modern hardware. Your brain stem and limbic system work together, managing basic functions and processing emotions while constantly scanning for threats. This primitive system operates with a singular focus: survival, regardless of your happiness or peace of mind. The most surprising part, this vigilance feels completely normal. When your nervous system remains perpetually on guard, you stop recognizing it as unusual, like background noise you've heard so long you no longer notice it. I experienced this recently when I jumped at a notification sound while working in my secure home office. My heart raced momentarily before I realized there was no danger, just my survival brain activating unnecessarily. Look at how this shows up in daily life: checking email compulsively, lying awake replaying social interactions, accumulating excess resources out of fear of scarcity, scrolling through social media, comparing yourself to others. Each behavior is your survival brain in action. You move from one perceived crisis to another: difficult conversations, health concerns, financial worries, never fully relaxing. Your system stays primed for danger, consuming massive cognitive resources. This vigilance depletes your energy reserves, leaving little fuel for creativity, compassion, or higher-level thinking. You're running sophisticated software on an operating system designed for a much simpler machine. What keeps most people trapped in this limited awareness, mistaking survival consciousness for your actual identity? When fear and reactivity dominate your thoughts, you believe that's simply who you are. "I'm just an anxious person," you tell yourself. But this isn't your true nature. It's an outdated program running in the background. This isn't about blame. Your brain is doing what it evolved to do. But in a world where physical dangers are rare, this constant alertness has become maladaptive, preventing you from experiencing life's richness beyond mere survival. Recognizing survival consciousness as just one level of awareness, not your complete identity, begins your path to freedom. It's about seeing the cage bars so clearly that they begin to dissolve. Beyond those dissolving bars of survival consciousness lies a more intricate realm, one where your emotions become the primary architects of your reality. Your brain begins processing emotional reactions 200 milliseconds before your conscious mind has any say in the matter. This invisible emotional operating system shapes everything from your closest relationships to your biggest life decisions. Have you ever noticed how a single critical comment can ruin your entire day, even when everything else is going well? Consider Sarah, who received constructive feedback on a presentation that spiraled into questioning her entire career path. This is emotional consciousness at work, the second stage of awareness where your reactions protect something precious: your self-image and social standing. This stage marks a shift from instinctual responses to a world where feelings and social dynamics influence behavior. Your mind becomes attuned to perceived threats unrelated to physical danger: a sideways glance from a coworker, being overlooked for recognition, or embarrassment in social situations. These emotional triggers can feel as threatening as physical danger to your nervous system. Your amygdala constantly scans your environment for potential threats. When it detects something concerning, it triggers your body's stress response before conscious thought intervenes. Emotional memories stored within the amygdala create deeply ingrained patterns that repeat themselves automatically. Most people spend their lives caught in this emotional turbulence, where decisions are actually reactions. Relationships become battlegrounds of unmet needs. Identity solidifies around these patterns, convincing you this emotional self is who you truly are. The third stage, rational consciousness, emerges as you begin shifting from autopilot to manual control. Like a driver suddenly taking the wheel after letting the car drive itself, you start questioning your automatic responses. You develop the ability to pause between stimulus and response, creating space for choice rather than reaction. As rational consciousness develops, it strengthens your identity through achievements and beliefs that become new sources of security. The thinking mind becomes your primary navigation tool. Problem solving becomes your preferred mode of operation. But here's the paradox: rational consciousness often builds intellectual walls. Imagine a person who, instead of reacting emotionally to criticism, constructs elaborate logical defenses, still protecting the ego, just with different materials. The rational mind excels at solving certain problems but struggles with questions that cannot be answered through logic alone. Intellectual mastery reinforces the ego, sharpening boundaries between self and world. This heightened separation can lead to intellectual pride and detachment from the heart. The rational mind becomes convinced it has reached the summit of consciousness, not realizing it's merely another station on a much longer journey. That intellectual scaffolding, so carefully constructed to protect the ego, eventually reveals its most significant limitation: it cannot feel connection. What if the breakthrough in consciousness isn't found in sharper thinking, but in allowing the heart to dissolve the very boundaries we've spent a lifetime defending? The transition feels less like climbing higher and more like coming home. Heart-centered consciousness represents a profound shift where awareness moves from self-focused concerns to a broader sense of connection. The boundaries that once seemed so solid begin to soften, creating space for something entirely new to emerge. This shift brings a felt experience of oneness that transforms how you perceive yourself and others. The challenge lies in surrendering defenses built over years. Those walls of separation, judgments, comparisons, and analyses that provided safety must be questioned. The mind resists this surrender because it threatens the identity it has worked to protect. When consciousness shifts from head to heart, the calculating mind that evaluates others based on utility begins to quiet. In its place emerges a natural compassion. You recognize yourself in others. Their struggles become meaningful not because they affect you personally, but because you feel genuinely connected to their experience. This threshold is crossed in unexpected moments. A mother holding her newborn experiences love so overwhelming that boundaries temporarily dissolve. Deep meditation creates spaces where separate self falls away. Acts of selfless service trigger this shift, as do moments of grief that crack the heart open like a fortress, giving way to a flowing river of compassion. These represent fundamental shifts in perception. Ancient wisdom traditions from Buddhism to Sufism point to heart-centered awareness as the beginning of awakening. While the intellectual mind understands concepts of connection, only the heart experiences them directly. This is why practices that open the heart take precedence over merely expanding knowledge. You can recognize your operating level of consciousness through practical indicators. Survival consciousness manifests as persistent feelings of threat. Emotional consciousness appears as reactivity without choice. Rational consciousness reveals itself through analysis, creating distance from direct experience. Heart-centered consciousness has unmistakable markers: genuine connection and spontaneous compassion. Curiosity about others emerges without calculation. Defensiveness diminishes as protecting your self-image becomes less important. Decisions consider how choices affect the whole. This shift transforms how you experience suffering. Others' pain no longer feels separate. Your definition of success expands beyond personal achievement to community well-being. When boundaries soften, compassion becomes natural rather than forced. This stage marks the threshold where consciousness turns outward and the sense of belonging to life itself takes root. As you begin to settle into heart-centered consciousness, something extraordinary awaits beyond that threshold. Have you ever experienced a moment when time seemed to stop, when the usual chatter of your mind fell silent, and you couldn't quite tell where you ended and the rest of the world began? This isn't mere imagination, it's a glimpse into cosmic consciousness, the fifth level where the very notion of separation starts to dissolve. In cosmic consciousness, the world becomes a unified field of experience where everything is connected through an invisible web of awareness. The boundaries that softened in heart-centered awareness begin to collapse entirely. What makes this state profound and sometimes disorienting is that there is no true outside or other anymore. There is only consciousness becoming aware of itself through countless forms, including what you previously called me. Neuroscientists have observed this phenomenon in brain imaging studies of advanced meditators. During these experiences, the brain's self-referencing system responsible for maintaining your sense of separate identity becomes unusually quiet. This network typically runs constantly in the background, reinforcing the story of who you think you are. In cosmic consciousness, this incessant self-referencing activity temporarily ceases. The result is an experience where time dissolves completely. Past and future collapse into an eternal now that feels more substantial and real than ordinary reality. The mind ceases its relentless searching because there's nowhere left to go. The universe itself seems alive, conscious, and intimately connected at every point. Beyond this lies non-dual consciousness, considered by some traditions to be the final frontier of awareness. Here, even the distinction between self and universe evaporates completely. Non-dual awareness can't properly be called an experience at all, because who is there to experience it? There is simply awareness without a center or reference point. This raises an intriguing question. If these expanded states represent the highest levels of consciousness, why do so few people reach them? And which level actually leads to true freedom? The answer might surprise you. While cosmic and non-dual states are profound, heart-centered consciousness turns out to be the crucial gateway to freedom. It's the only level where we can transcend our sense of separation without losing our humanity and ability to function effectively in the world. The supreme paradox is that cosmic and non-dual consciousness must eventually be integrated back into human experience through the heart. Without this integration, even the most profound realizations remain isolated peak experiences rather than transformed living. A person who experiences cosmic consciousness may temporarily lose the boundaries of self, but without heart-centered integration, they might return to ordinary awareness unchanged, with memories of bliss but no fundamental shift in how they relate to others. Transforming from within requires something far more challenging than a one-way ascent to enlightenment. Have you noticed how even after profound spiritual experiences, certain situations can instantly collapse your awareness back to survival mode? This pattern reveals the spiral nature of consciousness, a journey where the true test isn't how high you climb, but how you respond when life inevitably pulls you back down. The greatest misconception on the spiritual path is believing you've arrived after glimpsing higher states. The truth is humbling. No one remains in elevated states permanently. Consider how a single harsh comment can trigger ancient survival mechanisms, instantly transforming a peaceful mind into defensive patterns, just as our ancestors reacted to physical threats. Your brain shifts from expansion to protection. This cycling between states isn't failure, it's the point. Physical threats activate primitive brain regions. Emotional pain ignites the same circuits. Social rejection collapses expanded awareness. Even intellectual challenges trigger ego defenses. These are opportunities for integration. The spiritual journey resembles a river that winds back upon itself while moving forward. You'll revisit familiar territories of consciousness, hopefully with greater awareness each time. Like a phoenix rising from ashes only to burn again, we experience cycles of transcendence and contraction. Growth isn't measured by escaping triggers, but by recognizing when they've captured you. Many seekers fall into spiritual bypassing, wearing experiences like armor, avoiding difficult emotions, masking judgment behind positivity. The ego simply reemerges in spiritual language. I'm too evolved for conflict becomes separation in disguise. The practice is responding to challenges with awareness rather than fear-based reactions. When criticism makes you contract, can you notice it happening? Can you hold that reaction with compassion instead of judgment? The capacity to witness yourself falling without condemnation matters more than temporary peak experiences. Integration means carrying unity into conflict and routine. It's staying open when everything wants to close. Each conscious return to presence strengthens the neural pathways of awakening. This is the overlooked power of the spiral path. Each return deepens integration. Ironically, attachment to elevated states creates new suffering. True freedom comes from embracing the full spectrum of human experience with presence instead of resistance. The journey isn't about becoming less human, it's becoming more authentically human, meeting every layer of yourself with compassion. This perspective transforms every trigger into opportunity. When you contract around fear, you can bring light to unconscious patterns. The spiritual path isn't reaching a destination where challenges disappear. It's developing the capacity to meet each moment freshly, regardless of which level of consciousness you're experiencing. But this is where many spiritual seekers hit an unexpected truth. The treasure isn't permanent enlightenment. The true gift is learning to embrace life's full spectrum with awareness and presence. When you return from peak experiences of unity consciousness, the real work begins. Your growth is measured by how you carry the memory of unity into conflict, loss, and mundane Monday mornings. That's the hero's journey, embodying humanity completely. What everyday moment will you transform with this awareness today? Remember, each small act of presence continues your evolution, weaving cosmic understanding into the fabric of ordinary life.